Are you tired of introductions that fizzle out like a damn firework? Well, get ready to unleash the power of captivating openings as we dive deep into the ocean of creativity and learn how to hook readers like an angry rude octopus with writer's block. Wait, what?
Everything you need to easily pass English ATAR. English ATAR made simple. Powered by Saints Coaching.
How can your blog post's introduction capture the audience and markers' attention? That's what we will be discussing in this lesson as we take a look at the two examples that we've looked at in the previous two lessons on structure and planning, respectively. The usual cautions apply here. Make sure you have watched the video and completed the activities in relation to Intro to Module 5, how to structure your response to an interpretive composing section question, and how to plan your response to an interpretive composing section question. Assuming you've done all of that, let's take a look at our lesson objectives. First, two main parts of the lesson involve a recap of the main structures that we're looking at in this lesson. The first recap is of the structure of section 0, which is the headline, and remember HL means that section has a headline, so the headline has a headline. The second recap we'll be doing is the structure of section 1, which is the introduction. Up next is our analysis of example 1. After that, our analysis of example 2. And then we've just got a simple summary. Damn, we're getting good at this. Let's keep up this momentum. What accent was that? Let's return to our first recap, the structure of section 0, the headline. This bad boy has 4 subsections. Subsection 0.0 is the headline. The headline is at the top of the blog post and it's designed to capture the reader's attention and make them curious. Next up, we've got the byline, which is section 0.1. The byline is a line beneath the headline that states the blog post publication date and author's name. After the byline, we have the comments element, which is section 0.2. This is a line that states the number of comments at the bottom of the web page. Our final element, section 0.3, topics. This is where we write 1 to 3 keywords that embody the contents of your blog post. So those are our 4 elements of the headline. H, B, C, T. I don't think so. Instead, let's use heavy boats can't tow. Heavy boats can't tow, but we can. And we are going to tow towards our recap of the structure of section 1, the introduction. We are reunited with the top funnel once again. Section 1 is the introduction, and the first element of it is section 1.1, the activate. The activate is a few sentences that immediately engage the reader and relate to the question or your blog post's topic. Next element is section 1.2, relevance. This is where we write a couple of sentences that state the topic's importance and explain who the blog post applies to. Third and final element is section 1.3, our outline. The outline is 1 to 3 sentences that outline what the post is about and pique the reader's curiosity. Those are our 3 elements: activate, relevance, outline, A-R-O. Arrow? It works. But I think this one is a bit better. Angry Rude Octopus. So with our knowledge of heavy boats not being able to tow and angry red octopuses, octopi? Yeah. Let's check out the headline and introduction for example 1. Our greatest experiences are our quietest moments. Create an interpretive text in which you reflect on this quotation. Quick recap of step 5 of the planning steps. Have a read of the following underlined elements. Take note of how those elements appear in the following headline and introduction. Original version, deconstructed version. Here is the headline. How I learned about privilege, perseverance, and preparation, and how you can too. Here is the byline. 31 August 2022, Liam Carroll. Next up, we have the comments section. 38 comments. Finally, the topics section. Travel, education, stoicism. Those are our 4 elements of the headline. Now let's take a look at the first element of the introduction, the activate. Our greatest experiences are our quietest moments. I came across this quote from Friedrich Nietzsche, a German philosopher, the other day and have been thinking about its meaning ever since. I'm curious, what do the terms greatest experiences and quietest moments mean to you? When I hear greatest experiences, I immediately think about those experiences that have had the most significant positive impact on me. But what about the other term, quietest moments? What might Nishiki have been referring to there? And why does he equate greatest experiences to quietest moments? In my mind, those experiences that have had the most significant positive impact on me have always involved a so-called quiet moment. And I don't mean a moment that is literally quiet, devoid of sound. No. I mean a moment that's so quiet in a psychological sense that I've experienced immense mental clarity and an epiphany as a result. And that is what I think Nishiki was getting at. We regard specific experiences as our greatest because they involve mental clarity and impart profound lessons. Next up, we've got the relevance element. I think we can all learn a lot by reflecting on our own greatest experiences, especially during times of hardship, because they remind us of what we're capable of. They remind us that we can persevere and endure almost anything. Finally, here is the outline element. With that being said, in this post, I've decided to reflect on 3 of my greatest experiences and the so-called quiet moments or lessons that arose from them. To give you a little taster, those experiences relate to the Philippines, university, and Sweden. That's our headline and introduction for example 1. Here are some comments in relation to it. Let's start off with a discussion of the headline element of the headline. This headline employs alliteration, P, 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 and tricolon. It lists 3 things: privilege, perseverance, preparation. It also uses a direct address through the use of the word you. The alliteration and tricolon mentioned a moment ago make this headline memorable, and paired with the direct address, this headline makes the reader feel like they can gain value by reading this post. The next element is the byline. You literally can't go wrong here. All you do is mention the publication date and the author's name, which is a pseudonym. We cannot use our own name in the exam. That is why we have student numbers. Next up is the comment element. This is another one you can't really stuff up, although it would be a bit awkward if you just wrote 0 comments. So with that being said, the number of comments can actually be a good indication for how popular or unpopular the blog is. For example, let's say I'm this famous YouTuber with 15 million subscribers. One would assume that my blog is pretty popular. So in the comments section of my headline, it would make sense for me to write something like, 5,000 comments. That would immediately tell the audience, your marker, that this person's blog is popular and would tie into the persona you've adopted in the blog post as a famous YouTuber. These little details add up and can really make a big difference. Last but not least, for the headline, we have the topics. You can't really stuff this one up either, unless you put topics that have literally 0 relevance to what you're writing about. And that is not the case with these 3 topics of travel, education, and stoicism. Each topic represents each main idea that my post discusses. The topic of travel refers to the main idea of privilege. The topic of education refers to the main idea of perseverance. Finally, the topic of stoicism refers to the main idea of preparation. That's our discussion of the headline. Let's move to a discussion of the introduction, starting with the activate. Note how this activate doesn't refer to the hypothetical situation that I planned for in step 5 of the planning steps. This might sound counterintuitive because clearly I've spent time planning for something that I didn't actually implement in my answer. So what's the go here? The short answer is sometimes when you get into the flow of your writing, you'll come up with a better idea or something that feels more natural and you'll just write that instead. If you have a better idea as you're writing than the idea that you planned for, there's no point suppressing that really good idea just because you had another one before. I had the luxury of Googling who said the quote in the question. If you're answering a quote question, you are not expected to know who initially spoke the quote. However, if on the off chance you are certain, like 1000% certain, you know who the quote is from, it definitely wouldn't hurt to mention that in your response, your blog post. Consider how this sentence tells the marker that I'm answering the question. This part, have been thinking about its meaning, shows the marker that I am addressing the you reflect on this quotation part of the question. Asking the reader a question is a great way to enhance reader engagement. What do the terms greatest experiences and quietest moments mean to you? As I asked you that question, you were probably more engaged than you would have been if I was telling you what my greatest experiences and quietest moments mean. This second paragraph doesn't necessarily activate the reader, but given the nature of this question and this quote, I needed to explain how I interpreted the terms greatest experiences and quietest moments. As I said in the plan for this question, the meaning of those terms is ambiguous. That means I could interpret the terms my own way. The emboldened words on the slide represent my interpretations of those terms. Again, this isn't necessarily something that I would actively include in the Activate, but this is just how my writing flowed as I was creating this introduction, and I felt no reason why I just shouldn't put it where it is. In my plan, I said I wanted to adopt the following voice: contemplative, reflective, introspective, and casual. Do the following phrases and clauses construct such a voice? Have been thinking about its meaning ever since. I'm curious. What about the other term, quietest moments? And that's what I think Nishiki was getting at. I think it's fair to say this stuff in bold on the slide is effectively portraying the voice I planned for in my plan. Turning to the relevance section. This part in bold highlights why the topic of my blog post is important, and that is reflecting on our own greatest experiences remind us of what we are capable of. This topic's important because we're reminded of our own power. The inclusive language we, where indicates that the blog post isn't just about me, it's about us, especially during times of hardship. This indirectly says that the blog post is particularly relevant to people going through a rough time. You don't need to explicitly say, this blog post applies to people who are X, Y, Z. You can simply imply who the post applies to. We've also got some anaphora with the repetition of they remind us here and here. This is a subtle way of exaggerating the topic's significance. When you're reminded of something, that thing normally has some significance. Finally, we've also got some underlined text. This emphasizes a significant piece of the text that I wanted the readers to focus on. We can persevere and endure almost anything. Finally, we've got the outline section of the introduction. Unlike introductions in responding section essays, writing something to the effect of, in this blog post, I will be talking about X, Y, Z, is totally acceptable. Over here, we've got the use of dot points, and these are used to outline a simplified version of each main idea. The trick here is to give the reader just enough information to make them want to keep reading. And just like that, we have finished example 1. Here is example 2. Compose an interpretive text to represent an encounter with a person who taught you something about yourself. Step 5 of the planning steps, recapped. Take a look at the following underlined elements. Original version, deconstructed version. Headline: This encounter changed my life. Byline: 1 January 2023, Sam Simmons. Comments: 169 comments. Topics: spirituality, mindset. That's the headline. This is the introduction, specifically the Activate. Happy New Year, everyone. I'd like you to remember a time when you lacked hope, felt directionless, and wondered whether things would ever get better. Have you got it? One that comes to mind for me is 2018. I was in the final year of my undergraduate degree and was languishing, big time. I didn't know it then, but I hated what I was studying and felt utterly weighed down by the idea of doing that for the rest of my life. Moreover, I'd lost touch with a few of my closest friends and was still living in my family home. I felt isolated. Next up, we've got the relevance section. I tend to feel somewhat reflective, among other things, on the first day of the year, and I was thinking about that time 5 years ago when I wasn't in a great place. I'm really happy with where I'm at now, and I couldn't help but wonder what got me out of that rut in 2018. And then it hit me. I met David, a man who would prove to be a lifelong mentor and friend. He taught me something about myself that helped me rebound from loneliness, hopelessness, and everything in between. You might be experiencing those feelings at the moment. You might not. Either way, we've all experienced them at some point and bounced back somehow. Reflecting on how we bounced back helps us to do so faster in the future. Lastly, we have the outline. And that's really what today's post is all about. I'll be reflecting on my life before meeting David, what happened during the encounter with David, and my life after meeting David, in the hope that you'll recall how you got through a hard time and remind yourself of your own strength. Cool. That's the introduction. Let's do some comments. Headline element of the headline. This is the quintessential clickbait word. It basically tells the reader, I'm not going to tell you what the subject of this is. If you want to find out, you better read my post. It creates an element of mystery and suspense. Then we've got these words, changed my life. Life-changing experiences are few and far between. The fact that I've said this encounter qualifies as one of those experiences piques the reader's curiosity, encouraging them to continue reading. Here we've got the byline. The date in this byline is important. It is New Year's Day of 2023. The publication date being New Year's Day enables me to discuss New Year's in my post. The author's name is Sam Simmons, SS. Using alliteration for the author's name makes the name memorable. Then we've got the comments. The number of comments indicates that my blog, or at the very least this post, is relatively popular and has sparked some conversation among its readers. Final element of the headline is the topics section. Both topics represent my entire blog post rather than individual sections of it. That's our discussion of the headline. Here is a discussion of the introduction, starting with the activate. I start off by saying, Happy New Year, everyone. This is a subtle but very effective way of telling the marker you understand the conventions of the form, which is a blog post. Imagine if I published this post on New Year's Day to my audience of 1,000 subscribers without acknowledging New Year's Day. If I have a really loyal fan base of readers who stay updated with what I'm posting on a daily basis, not having any reference to New Year's Eve or New Year's Day in my post would make it look as though I'm not addressing the elephant in the room. Also, this greeting immediately creates a friendly voice per step 4 of the planning steps. This also indicates that I've got a relatively close connection with my readers. This aspect of the activate asks the readers to do something and ensures they don't skim over that request by asking, have you got it? Note how the syntax, sentence structure, and diction, word choice, construct a friendly, relaxed, and trustworthy voice, as was planned for. I've opened up to the reader by telling them I was in a bad place, yet I've kept the tone pretty lighthearted through the use of the words big time in one sentence. Don't underestimate short sentences like big time and I felt isolated. They can be really powerful provided you don't overuse them. Next up, we've got the relevant section. I tend to feel somewhat reflective, among other things. In my plan, I said my audience is young adults, particularly those with an interest in mindset. Feeling reflective and this topic of mindset go hand in hand. Most young adults are very hungover on New Year's Day, so my allusion to that fact through the use of, among other things, is a way of telling the marker I understand my audience. Also note the use of the words he taught me something about myself in this part of the relevance, and the words a person who taught you something about yourself in this part of the question. Reusing the question's terminology in your response is an easy way to tell the marker you're answering the question. Loneliness, hopelessness, and everything in between. We've all experienced them at some point. These parts of the relevant subsection indirectly addresses who the post applies to. Essentially, anyone who felt shitty at some point. Finally, reflecting on how we bounced back helps us to do so faster in the future. The final sentence of the relevance explains the topic's significance. If you engage in some reflection with me in this blog post, you'll be able to overcome hard stuff easier in the future. Finally, we've got the outline. Compare the use of diction and the subsequent voice portrayed in each of the following. And that's really what today's post is all about. I'll be reflecting on versus the following post will outline. The first version reflects the casual voice I want to portray. If you reflect with me and recall how you got through a hard time in the past, you'll remind yourself of your own strength. This final part of the outline also explains the topic's significance to the reader. Outlining the topic's relevance to the reader is normally done in the relevant section. Remember, you don't need to follow this structure rigidly. The fact that I have this particular sentence in the outline rather than the relevance is irrelevant to the marker. Finally, the use of dot point outlines the post's straightforward and familiar structure. Before, during, and after. Good stuff. That's an Angry Rude Octopus. This is a simple summary. No, damn it. Oh, big sad. I just did that entire simple summary and realized I was screen recording my screen recording software. Meta. Take 2. We started with a recap of the structure of section 0, the headline. The mnemonic is heavy boats can't tow. The H in that mnemonic stands for the headline, section 0.0. The headline is a heading at the top of the blog post and it's designed to capture the reader's attention and make them curious about what the post is. The B stands for the byline, section 0.1. The byline is a line beneath the headline that states the blog post publication date and author. The C stands for Comments Section 0.2. This is a line that states the number of comments at the bottom of the web page. The T stands for Topics. This is Section 0.3. Topics is where we write 1 to 3 keywords that embody the content of our blog post. After that, we move to recapping the structure of Section 1, the introduction. Mnemonic, Angry Rude Octopus. The A stands for Activate, Section 1.1. The activates a few sentences that immediately engage the reader and relate to the question or your post's topic. The R stands for Relevant, Section 1.2. The relevant is a couple of sentences that state why the topic's important and explain who the topic or blog applies to. Finally, the O stands for Outline, Section 1.3. The outline is 1 to 3 sentences that outline what the post will discuss and pique the reader's curiosity. Here are some key takeaways of all of those elements of the headline and the introduction in relation to our discussion of example 1 and example 2. A few key takeaways regarding the headline element of the headline. Consider employing the following devices to create a memorable and enticing headline: alliteration, a tricolon, and a direct address. The word "this" is the quintessential clickbait word. It tells the reader, I'm not going to tell you what this is in the headline. If you want to find out more, you must read my post. Here's some important stuff regarding the byline. Remember, the publication date of your post can be used as a contextual clue. For example, New Year's Eve, Christmas Day, a Memorial Day, etc. Some takeaways regarding the comments subsection. The number of comments can indicate how popular or unpopular your blog is. Final element of the headline is the topics element. For this one, consider creating the topics subsection of the headline by distilling each main idea into one word. For example, for the question that had the quote in it, I created my topics subsection of the headline by distilling each main idea into one word: privilege, preparation, perseverance. Those are some important things regarding each element of the headline. Here are some important things regarding each element of the introduction. Starting with the activate. Firstly, asking the reader a question is a great way to enhance reader engagement. For example, I'm curious, what do the terms greatest experiences and quietest moments mean to you? Another one, don't forget to define any ambiguous terms in the question. Example, greatest experiences, I've defined that as experiences where you have learned something. Also, you should use your opening sentence to set the blog post tone and construct your voice. Example, Happy New Year, everyone. Last takeaway for the activate, use short sentences for emphasis, but use them sparingly. Recall the following short sentence from one of the examples. I felt isolated. There is something so simple but so effective about this short sentence. This is some important stuff that we learned about the relevant section. You don't need to explicitly say, this blog post applies to people who are X, Y, Z. You can impliedly communicate who the post applies to, such as using words like, especially during times of hardship. These words impliedly communicate what I'm about to discuss applies to people who have gone through a hard time. Don't forget, reusing the question's terminology in your response is an easy way to tell the marker you are answering the question. Our final element of the introduction is the outline. For this section, we learned, unlike introductions in responding section essays, writing something to the effect of, I will be talking about XYZ in a blog post is acceptable. Another really important point is you don't need to follow this structure rigidly. And I mentioned this in the context of stating the relevance of my post in the outline section instead of the relevant section for example 2. It's important to remember that the marker won't know that you've accidentally highlighted the topic's relevance to the audience in the wrong element. This is a structure that we are using to produce a great blog post for the audience. It's something that is invisible to the audience, but it's something that engages them. That's why we try and follow it, but slight variations here and there won't matter too much. One final point, the dot point should give the reader a taste of what's to come without making them feel too full. We made it. No, try again. We made it. I hope you found it useful to see what the structure of an introduction looks like in practice. As always, the best way you can actually learn to use this structure is to just complete the activities for this lesson, but only after you've completed the activities for the previous lesson on planning. And reading the instructions for all sets of activities in this module is important because they vary slightly depending on which preference this text type is for you. Okay, we'll wrap it up there. Thanks for hanging out with me in this lesson, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, keep it simple.